Thus, compared to just looking at job boards and looking at postings, you have to go and identify specific organizations that you might want to work for and see if they actually have jobs available. All right, and so then the question is, okay, well, how do we actually find what some of these organizations and companies, who they might be? All right, so there's 4 specific tips. All right, so the first is to look at membership lists or resources from different industry associations. The next is to look at exhibitors or presenters at conferences, looking at industry publications and websites. And the last suggestion is to look at national or local lists and directories of green businesses. So we're going to actually look at all of these 4 items here in this section on the next slide. All right, so the first thing I mentioned is to look at different resources from different industry associations. So within whatever aspect of green you're interested in, whether that be biofuels, solar, green building, and so forth, there's a whole national network of organizations that work in that sector. And so the suggestion here is to be able to identify, let's say, a key association that may provide you, let's say, with a list of some of the, companies, organizations hiring, and so forth. So to make that more concrete, so for example, in the solar field, there's a leading national association called the American Solar Energy Society. They're at ases.org. So one of the resources on their website is what they have, this Green Start job board. And what you'll see, if you can see on the slide, is they actually have a list of a number of different solar companies. They've listed the state that they're in. And they also have links to their career section. So in this page, I've actually been a member of the ASCS off and on over the years. So this is actually a free resource. It's obviously greater than to provide this. So that's clearly a helpful resource if you're looking for a job in the solar area. So the suggestion is to identify, organizations like this that are kind of hubs for information for the industry that you're interested in. Right. And so when it comes to identifying some of these associations, just like job boards, I've tried to compile a number of these in different aspects of the green sector. All right, so another of the suggestions in terms of how to go direct and find, companies and so forth is to look at lists or directories of green businesses. Right, so for example, in the Bay Area, there's something called the Bay Area Green Business Program. And so again, as a job seeker, one thing I'd be able to do is to actually look at the list of who some of these businesses are. I think similar to this might be different green coupon books, green yellow pages that you'll find in a number of different areas across the country. Another example is something called the Redirect Guide. They're in a number of different cities, right, including Portland, Denver, Salt Lake City. And you can see here, this looks similar to the layout, let's say, of the yellow pages. So if you have a particular interest in one of the areas that are outlined there, you'll be able to actually get a list of different businesses that work in that sector. So again, our goal here is we're trying to find out who's, in an area that we're interested in and then seeing if they have jobs. So these are some examples of how to go direct. Mentioned industry publications and websites. So one example is Sustainable Industries. They're a leading publication. Right, so to be able to use this for a number of purposes, these publications will frequently have information on, let's say, what company just opened a plant, who got an award, a grant of some type, announced a new product. So things like that can lead you to find out about companies that may be in a growth mode. Right, sometimes you'll also see advertisements from companies in these publications and websites. So again, if a company can spend a lot of money on marketing, can potentially they're ones that are in a growth phase. Mentioned going also to conferences, right? So again, conferences can be used for multiple purposes. So an example is the Green Festival takes place in a number of cities. They have ones, it's kind of eco-living events taking place both in San Francisco and LA next month. So one of the things you can do is, while these are not job fairs per se, you can look through the exhibitor directory, find out if there's organizations you're interested in, see if they have jobs, and then when you go to the event, leverage your time there from a networking standpoint to facilitate your job search. So as one example, this is from the exhibitor directory. This was from last year's Green Festival in San Francisco. One of the companies you'll see here off to the side is Cliff Bar. I like Cliff Bars, I like the company. So I saw this there. I thought, okay, they're going to be there at the event. Let me see if they have jobs. So I went to their website, and sure enough, they had a number of jobs. Right. So if I was actually interested in working for Cliff Bar, I potentially, when I was going to the Green Festival, I would do something beyond simply having the free sample of a Cliff Bar at their booth. I'd want to leverage my time there from a networking standpoint, potentially trying to get a contact that might help me in my job search. All right, so those were all suggestions around going direct, which is being able to, how do we find companies that may be hiring and leverage that? All right, so I've mentioned a lot about companies and going direct. So one additional point here is around, you can use some of the same approaches going direct in terms of the government. So if there's particular agencies that you'd like to work for, again, go to their websites, see if they're hiring. Again, they may not be in a position where they're actually actively posting on job boards. All right, so there's just a couple of illustrations of California Public Utilities Commission. There are a number of recent job postings there. This is one obviously in the New York area. And these are recent postings from the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality, a number of different jobs there. And obviously keeping in mind that many government agencies are not necessarily in a large growth phase in terms of hiring, but still same idea, go directly to them, look and see if there's entities that you're interested in working for. Okay, so for the next couple slides, going to talk about networking, and we clearly know how important networking is. We talk about job searching, as many folks here on the webinar will know. You've probably heard the phrase, not what you know, it's who you know. So I want to spend a few minutes talking about networking. Right, so partly the information on the slide is a little bit how my thinkings have been evolving around the importance of networking, and that's really, as you build your network, you're really increasing your luck. So I'm going to just briefly mention this quote. So lucky people are effective in building secure and long-lasting attachments with the people they meet. They're easy to know and most people like them. They tend to be trusting and form close relationships with others. As a result, they often keep in touch with a much larger number of friends and colleagues than unlucky people. And added this for emphasis, the last sentence, and time and again, this network of friends helps promote opportunity in their lives. And again, the way I boil this down to really is you build your network and you build your luck. If you have the larger your network, stronger your network, it's going to help you in terms of opportunities, and obviously this applies to the job search. So to give you an illustration, so in my work, I will send out different job postings to different folks that I know are looking for work. So this is an example of one exchange I had with somebody last year. So you'll see I sent them a job posting for a role. I sent this to them around 10 in the morning. Got back a reply from them about an hour or so later, and they said, I just had a few people send this to me. Guess I better do it. Right, so to me, what was amazing about this is, so this person didn't even have to go out and find this opportunity. They had multiple people in their network send it to them. So when I think of, do I think this person, is kind of luckier, let's say, than the average person from a job search standpoint? I certainly think so when they have multiple people sending them a job announcement. That's what it seems like to me. So this is just, to me, just a simple illustration, but of the basic idea that, building your network can facilitate your luck when it comes to different areas. And obviously here we're talking about the job search. So in terms of some ways to actually go about networking, we're going to spend a few minutes talking about both offline, which is also called the real world, as well as online approaches to networking. Right, so offline networking, there are a number of different things you can do. Go to events put on by organizations such as Green Drinks. You can get involved in local chapters of groups such as the American Solar Energy Society, attending programs and conferences. So let's take a look at some examples. Right, so there's some organizations that have really ongoing regular events in a variety of locations, both in the United States and in some instances around the world. All right, so Green Drinks is a relatively, it's grassroots, it's get together once a month in a variety of locations around the world. So you can just go to greendrinks.org, see if there's an event happening in a city, and if there isn't, perhaps you can start your own event there. So it's a relatively informal gathering of people interested in green, sustainability, and so forth. They get together at some location, kind of social networking standpoint. Or another example is an organization called Eco Tuesday. They have a few events in different cities every month. And again, you can just check them out at ecotuesday.org. They just had their event about a week or so ago, but they have them every month. Some other examples, so in addition to things like Green Drinks, Eco Tuesday, one thing you'll find, at least in some locations, are kind of alliances or groups of green businesses. And those are things you can plug into or again, potentially start your own chapter. One example is the Green Chamber of Commerce. They go by other names such as the Sustainable Business Alliance, things like that. Right, and then there's obviously individual conferences that you can attend that are obviously very good sources for networking, as well as building your learning within particular sectors. So just to give you a few illustrations, I've tried to highlight things that are upcoming, so potentially you can do that as follow-up from this webinar. Right, so this is an example in New York City. The Social Enterprise Conference is taking place at Columbia. There's a national organization, Net Impact. They're basically a network of people interested in business, using business for social good. So their annual conference is taking place later this month in Baltimore. On the West Coast in November, there's Opportunity Green in Los Angeles. And for those interested in the green building sector, the U.S. Green Building Council is having their annual Green Build Expo in mid-November. So those are just some examples. And if folks have questions, sometimes I get like, how do I find out about all these events? Obviously, I try to stay plugged in. Or some other tips I can give you. Again, you can contact me after this webinar. All right, so those are offline networking. So let's talk about online for a couple minutes. I think, again, most people who actually are on this webinar may be familiar with the LinkedIn group that I run. So let's talk a little bit about LinkedIn. And obviously, there's a number of different social media as well, Facebook, Twitter, and so forth. But just for purposes of our time right now, I'm just going to focus on LinkedIn. Right. So one of the things you can do on LinkedIn is join groups. Again, I run a group, the Green Jobs and Career Network. I'm been excited to see that it's actually now the largest one for our green job community, over 50,000 people worldwide. But there's obviously lots of groups you can join on LinkedIn to facilitate your networking and opportunities. So a few things to mention about groups on LinkedIn. One is that you potentially can network with people in the group. Right. So I've just highlighted some examples of some of the people that are in our group, and I'm continue to be amazed by the quality of people that are members of our group. All right, so this is one example as a key role at FedEx regarding environmental and sustainability. We have someone else who has a key role here in IKEA, as well as people who work for, again, important groups in our sector, such as the Sierra Club. Right, so obviously, these groups on LinkedIn, so one key component is that they actually have real people that you can connect with, right? So another key aspect, right, is that there's actual job postings within LinkedIn groups. Not all groups, but some of them. So within our group, there's a jobs tab, and you'll find both jobs that have been posted directly on LinkedIn and then other items as well in this jobs discussion section where people will post job opportunities. Right, and one of the key things in terms of thinking about kind of uncovering hidden jobs and helping you in your job search is that one thing that I like about job postings on LinkedIn, for example, in our group, is that you actually will have real people associated with these postings, right? So as compared to a generic posting where all you have is a general email address, jobs@company.com, here you will get a real person, right? So if you can end up kind of networking or connecting up with, a person at this organization, that potentially can be very helpful as compared to just sending in a cold resume, right? So just to give one example, right, we had here a posting for Heal the Bays Aquarium. They're looking for a full-time volunteer coordinator for their organization. So we saw this was posted by Tara. So we can kind of then look, okay, who is Tara? Who posted this? We actually find out that Tara, right, actually works for the organization, right? So again, if it turned out that we were qualified, we thought, hey, we're a good fit for this role to be able to network with someone who works at the organization. Again, that is a tremendous, benefit as compared to just sending in a cold resume.